Welcome learners on the lecture series on research methodology. In the previous series, we have already discussed about research, types of research and research design. In the previous series, we talk about different types of research design, explanatory, exploratory and descriptive. So in this session, we are going to talk about explanatory research design, जिसे हिंदी में बोलते हैं व्याख्यात्मक शोध प्रारूप. To have discussion on this topic, we have with us Dr. Ashwini from Discipline of Psychology. Dr. Ashwini, welcome on this series.
Thank you.
Before we start on this topic, let us rewind what we have learned in the first session. We have talked about the research, then we talk about the research design. We already talked that research design decides the fate of the proposer and its outcome. If design is faulty and defective, whole research will be faulty and defective. तो देखिए शोध प्रारूप बहुत महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाता है. अगर आपका शोध प्रारूप सही नहीं है तो पूरी आपकी रिसर्च वो पूरी तरह से गलत हो जाएगी. तो आज हम बात करने जा रहे हैं व्याख्यात्मक शोध प्रारूप की, मेन एक्सप्लेनेटरी रिसर्च डिजाइन की. उससे हम शुरुआत करें तो मैं आपको एक थ्रू एग्जाम्पल में आपको समझाना चाहता हूँ व्हाट इज एक्सप्लेनेटरी रिसर्च डिजाइन. इमेजिन करिए यू आर अ टीचर, यू आर वर्किंग इन ए स्कूल. आप एक स्ट्रेंज थिंग नोटिस करते हैं. यू फाइंड आउट दैट जो परफॉर्मेंस है बच्चों की स्टार्ट डिक्लाइनिंग. एज ए टीचर व्हाट विल यू डू? आप क्या करेंगे? आप देखते हैं कि बच्चों की परफॉर्मेंस डिक्लाइन हो रही है. सो एज ए टीचर आपके मन में आएगा ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है. तो द फर्स्ट स्टेप व्हाट विल यू डू? यू विल काउंट हाउ मेनी स्टूडेंट आर not performing well, suppose 40%. So what is this? This is descriptive research design, because you are providing description how many students are not performing well. So you're just giving the description. That is descriptive research design. And second step, what will you do? You will try to find out, you will ask question to the students. Do you use mobile? How many time you study? So at what time you sleep? So that is explorative, means you are exploring the things. Why students are not performing well? You are exploring the thing. And when you want to do deeper study, then you use explanatory research design. जिसे हम व्याख्यात्मक शोध प्रारूप बोलते हैं. देखिए जो पहले हमने बताया कि हम एक जनरल डिस्क्रिप्शन बता रहे हैं. हम बोल रहे हैं जिन बच्चों की परफॉर्मेंस कम है वो कितने % है. एंड सेकेंड स्टेप में हमने उनसे कुछ सवाल पूछे कि आप मोबाइल फ़ोन यूज़ करते हैं. डू यू यूज़ मोबाइल फ़ोन्स? हाउ मच टाइम डू यू गिव टू योर स्टडी? तो वो हमने एक्सप्लोर किया. दैट इज एक्सप्लोरेटिव रिसर्च डिज़ाइन. और तीसरा हमने कहा हम अगर डीपर स्टडी करते हैं वी जस्ट ट्राई टू फाइंड आउट द सॉल्यूशन ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम. दैट इज एक्सप्लेनेटिव रिसर्च डिजाइन, मींस व्याख्यात्मक शोध प्रारूप. देखिए इन शोध प्रारूप के बारे में हमने पहले भी चर्चा की थी पहले सेशन में, लेकिन हम ज़्यादा डीपली नहीं कर पाए थे. तो आज हम उसको डीपली करने जा रहे हैं. इन शॉर्ट, व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट एक्सप्लेनेटिव रिसर्च डिजाइन इज बेसिकली इज प्रोवाइड सॉल्यूशन टू अ प्रॉब्लम. इट्स अ कॉज एंड इफेक्ट रिलेशनशिप देखता है. तो डॉक्टर अश्विनी, कैन यू थ्रो सम लाइट more on this explanatory research design?
Yes, thank you so much for raising these questions. Definitely the question that you have raised at the beginning, you have given the example which is very relevant. So whenever we talk about any research problem, that start with the questions like one teacher is concerned about the decrement in the performance of the students. Definitely they will try to identify different things, what are the reason behind it. And if we consider these queries as a research question, then there would be a various possibility how to deal with these questions. And this dealing with this question could have a various methodology that we can apply. Suppose a teacher wanted to know about the questions like why the decrement is there in terms of performance. Though when we try to answer the question why, we will have one appropriate design for this, which is called explanatory research design. So explanatory research design is nothing but a research design which gives us opportunity to establish causal relationship, to identify the cause behind of any consequences that is happening, any occurrence of the things that is happening. So the cause can be easily addressed in the explanatory research design. Though explanatory research design sometime researcher may confuse that how it is different from exploratory and descriptive. You have rightly mentioned at the beginning it has a differences. So first of all, researchers should know what are the difference between exploratory then and how it is different from the descriptive. So if the teachers, if we are taking the same example, if the teacher wanted to know the ratio about the how much students are going down in terms of their performance, then it would be descriptive. Means the researcher tried to see the trend. What are the trend behind the any occurrence? The secondly, maybe they would like to they would be able to understand what are the reason behind it, and maybe they want to explore which things which has not been explored yet. So the exploratory research design gives you opportunity to explore new ideas, new things. Generally we go with the qualitative measures in order to execute the exploratory research design. At the same time, when we want to understand the cause behind any behavior, or cause behind any things, any occurrence, so we go with the explanatory research design. As you rightly mentioned, explanatory research design gives us an opportunity to establish causal relationship, and also try to answer the question why something is happening, what is happening, and what are the reason behind it. So whatever the method we opt in order to conduct research in especially explanatory design, we use those methods which are appropriate and which are effective in order to establish the causal relationship. So with this we can understand that how this explanatory research design is different from the other research design, which are also very prominent in different fields. But as far as the objective, as we all know that whenever we talk about opting a research design, we usually say it is not based on the personal interest. It is not based on the interest of the researcher. It is based on the what purpose of the research is there, what is the goal of the research, and accordingly we opt. So if the researcher wanted to know about the cause behind any things, then the explanatory research design is appropriate, and word itself enough to understand. Explanatory means we are going to explain something, and in order to explain something we need to go with the deeper understanding of these things, and we opt different method in order to establish the causal relationship.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. You rightly said that explanatory research design, as the name itself indicate, to mean to explain the things. Right. The example as we quoted earlier, the things how we explain, we give the reasons. In explorative research design, we explore the thing. In explanatory, we provide the reason to a particular solution. You use the word causal explanation, and you also use the word cause and effect relationship. Can you more focus on this cause and effect relationship between the variables? Because a lot of researchers get confused during these terms, cause and effect among the variables. What do you mean by the cause and effect?
Yes, very good question. And when we try to understand this causal relationship, means any occurrence is like decrement of performance of the student. What are the cause behind it? What are the variables that contribute in order to decrease the performance? Now in these days, students are moreover focused upon they spend more time in social media platform. They are using more rigorously in different internet activities. So how much time they are spending in internet, how much they are time spending in the social media, they definitely will impact their performance. So suppose one of the cause, if we are identifying, like it can be one of the cause, like how much the person is spending time on internet, that will research suggest like that will decrease the attention span, and ultimately attention span, if it is decreased, then definitely it would directly impact the performance of the students. So it can be one of the cause behind it, though it is not clearly understand. The different literature is suggesting different. Some literature may suggest like a study hours can affect the performance of the student. How much study the student is doing, or how much devoting time for the study will impact their performance. So it can also be one of the cause. But there would be a various cause behind the particular thing. So the researcher basically identify one of them and try to control other things in order to make a established causal relationship in which the variable which is impacting the performance would be the cause of the causal variable, and those who are get impacted by the other variable would be the effect of the variable. So there are two kind of variable that we study in order to understand the causal relationship. One variable is the independent variable, another one is the dependent variable. And independent variable is nothing but we generally consider as a causal variable which impact on the dependent variable. So, and accordingly dependent variable would be the effect. So, in this case that you have taken into examples that the study hours can be cause, that would be IV, independent variable, like spending time on internet, spending time on internet would be the IV, that would be the causal. But still it is our prediction, it is our assumption, but it needs to be tested. And therefore, we use different method and procedure in order to explain the things, in order to establish the causal relationship. It is our prediction, it is our assumption, and this assumption is not nothing but it comes with the previous literature review. So whatever literature suggests, like now in these days news articles are very, and the different literature is suggesting that because of the heavy use of internet, the attention span is going down of the students, and in order to perform better, your attention should be very enough requirement is there. So if the attention span is decreasing, that can be suggested by the different research findings. That could be one of the cause that you can test in your study whether it is really placing a role like cause or not. So for that we follow the different method in particular domain itself.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Ashwini. In very simple word, you clearly defined what the meaning of cause and effect is, what are causal explanation. In the previous session, we also talk about the hypothesis. You clearly mentioned that in explanatory research design, we use the hypothesis, basically guess. So, Ashwini, the same question, repeated question I'm asking you. So, in basically these questions are raised by the research scholar in our class. Is that in which method we do not use hypothesis? Like in explanatory method, as you said that we have to prepare the hypothesis. So can you throw some light on in which research method we not prepared hypothesis?
Of course, in explanatory, if we talk about explanatory research design, obviously in explanatory research design, moreover or infrequently where we can say we use hypothesis, because we try to identify the cause behind the anything, and this cause cannot be intrinsic. It could be established or it could be reflected in the previous researches. And in explanatory research design, usually we follow quantitative method in which we go with the deductive approaches. In deductive approach, wherever we apply deductive approach, we started with the hypothesis and we try to test them with the help of our data and different methods that we have in a statistical technique. But where we use inductive approach, we do not form any research hypothesis. Inductive means we don't have a clear understanding. So first of all, researchers should know what is hypothesis is. So hypothesis is nothing but a tentative statement of the problem.
Famous thinker P.V. Young defined the definite hypothesis: a tentative generalization, the validity of which remain to be tested.
Remain to be tested. You are rightly mentioned. Remain to be tested. So those things which has been given a kind of temporary answer to the questions. So you have already answered the question that you test further. But for those topic which has not been explored yet, could not be formed, researcher cannot form any hypothesis. So hypothesis is basically based on the previous literature review. We do not form hypothesis on the basis of our own insight. So base of the hypothesis formation is previous literature. And if the previous literature has not enough in number in order to form the hypothesis that you are going through, that you are making your research, which is totally new in area, which is not explored yet, where you do not follow, you do not form any hypothesis. And mostly those exploratory research comes under this domain, and exploratory research design come with the inductive approach, where we do not form hypothesis because the literature is not sufficient, and we do not need to test the hypothesis. So it is a formation of literature where we go into depth and we try to find out and hypothesize or give the theory at the end of the study when we opt exploratory research design. moreover, the exploratory research design comes with the inductive approach and qualitative approach we use, where we don't form hypothesis. The reason behind it has not been explored yet, and the hypothesis we form on the basis of previous literature review, because the previous literature review is not sufficient enough, and the topic that the researcher has taken into consideration is not explored yet. So there is no need to form a hypothesis. It can be goes with the research questions rather to form the hypothesis.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. You rightly said that, and with it wouldn't depend upon the objective of the study.
Definitely.
Like you rightly said that in experimental research design, we do not know much about the topics, that we do not formulate the hypothesis. So, Dr. Ashwin, the important question raised by the learners are that what are the methods we use in exploratory research? In exploratory research, can you throw some light on it?
Yeah, definitely. So, as the purpose and aim is clear, that our purpose and aim is to establish the causal relationship. And among the different methods that we have, let's say correlational, let's say other descriptive method, where you can't establish the causal relationship, the appropriate method is the experimental method. Experimental method is one of the methods through which we establish the causal relationship, in which basically in experimental method, the method talks about that the observation under control condition. So when we observe a particular variable or phenomena in control condition where other cannot influence to the particular variable, on that particular situation only we can establish the causal relationship. So in experimental design, apart from experimental design, there are certain others now in these days there are good trained, in which some statistical method like structure equation modeling and some higher order regression would also gives a picture where IV means independent variable try to explain the DB and what aspect it is trained to explain to DB and dependent variable. So in experimental design, what we do, there are three things comes together in experimental design, or you can say in experimental method. There are three prominent things that we do. One is called randomization, and the second is called manipulation, and the third one is called control. So if the three things are there, then only we would be in position to establish the causal relationship. What are these three things? I would like to briefly introduce about these three things, because it is a prominent part of the method, that we use in explanatory research. So in experimental method, we, as I just mentioned before, one is randomization. What we randomize means the randomized control design is one of the things that we do, in which the samples should be randomized, allocate into the experimental group or control group. And the second important thing is the manipulation, where we manipulate the IV in order to see the effect of IV. IV, when I am saying IV, means independent variable. So there would be a two variable, one would be cause, and the cause, because of this cause, the effect would be assessed in the different variable, that would be dependent one. So the manipulation would take place in the IV in order to see the effect of IV on DB. For example, in this studio, there are constant brightness is there in order to see the visibility. So at what extent the visibility would be differ when we change the brightness of the light. So the brightness of light that we are changing, it is IV. In order to see the effect of this brightness, the visibility would be our DB. So the brightness, the manipulation of the IV, how much this manipulation would affect the DB, that is our visibility. At one extent, we would not be able to see something because the brightness is very low. Similarly, so in similar fashions, we manipulate IV in order to see the effect of IV on DB. So the manipulation is very important part. If the researcher has coming with the experimental method, using experimental method, and the condition is like this, where he or she researcher cannot manipulate their IV, then it could not be a part of experimental design. So in experimental design, manipulation is very important. As the randomization is equally important. Randomization, why we do? Because of the biasness, to get rid with the biasness, the subjectivity would not come. Whatever the people come into the control or experimental group, it is by chance only. It is equal probability of selecting the sample into the different group. So the biasness would reduce. And the third one that we are talking about, one of the indicator or techniques or what indicators of experimental method is control. So what we are controlling means all the extraneous variable, like in the example that you have stated in the beginning. So performance is going down. As I told you, the literature is suggesting various things, like it could be because of the study hours, it could be because of the internet, spending time on his internet, how heavily the person is using internet, going into the different social media platform and everything. So it can be anything. So if we have to see, study hours is one of the causal variable if you are taking into consideration in your study, or let's say use of internet, one of the cause behind it. So you will have to control the various things in the same manner. Means you are taking only the variable which is changing in the spending time of the internet, spending time on the internet by the different participants. Those who are using 1 hour, those who are using 2 hours, those who are using 3 hours, they are changing different times, and accordingly we will see their performance. And
Dr. Swami, sorry to interpret in between, but in social science research we usually say that we cannot use the control situation because we study the human mind, we study human being. So you are using the word, you use 3 words: randomization, manipulation, and control. Do you think control situation is possible in experimental research design? This is my general.
Yeah. So therefore, when we talk about experiment, so it comes under the laboratory setting. It is a typical method. So as you rightly mentioned, in various occasions we do not go for the complete control, but at maximum we can do if either of the 3 conditions, like as I told you, manipulation, control, and randomization, either of any one we could not fulfill in our research, it comes under the quasi-experiments. So in quasi-experimental design, it is not assumed that it would be completely controlled, but the researcher identify those variables which can have a direct impact on the DV, which should be control over it. Like for example, performance also depend upon the study hours as well as the intelligence of the students. So in order to see the effect of internet hours, internet spending time on the internet, we would have to take all the samples which has the same IQ level, as well as those who have spending a similar number of hours in a study, so that they can be controlled and their effect cannot be treated as one of the variable in the dependent, which is the performance. So by doing this, by taking all participants with the same level, we are somehow control them. Controlling does not always means like to eliminate the things from the environment. Like in studio, we can control the noise by making the environment soundproof. But in the variable like that we were discussing, that it cannot be totally controlled. By selecting, by making them equal would also be one of the method through which we control. Like gender can also be one of the effect. So we can control the gender, like the participants should be equal in number of male and female in both the group. So accordingly we can control the situation. And these 3 things, if some researcher is fulfilling, then it can claim that the research method is truly significant for the experimental method. And by using this experimental method, one can establish the causal relationship. So establishing the causal relationship would give the cause and effect relationship, and accordingly they can establish whatever the cause behind it. So there are certain steps that I would like to emphasize on. How do we follow the steps in especially when we try to use explanatory research design. Right.
Okay, you talk about the steps. Do you think longitudinal study, longitudinal research method come under explanatory research? Now we are using longitudinal studies basically. Nowadays, a lot of people are talking about longitudinal study. What do you think? This longitudinal studies are part of explanatory research?
Yeah, definitely. So see, longitudinal is one of the way through which we observe the participant for the long period of time. It is not cross-sectional. It is not a one point of time where we are observing. Some researches which you want to see, like let's say the impact of social media on performance, it cannot be a segment where we can see. If it has impact, it will see in the long duration of their life, means their career. From let's say from 7 to 10, there are 3 years of their career. If it has impact, it can be seen in the different stages of their career. So it can be used. The longitudinal study can also be used as an experimental within the experimental method, but the control is more rigorous. You need to be more rigorous in terms of whatever the participants you have taken into consideration. They would not drop out in between your researches. So the effort would be more in longitudinal, though it can be the part. Similarly, as you stated just before, like the control condition could not be possible when we go for the any natural setting. In the natural setting, it could not be possible, but at the same time, when you have to observe something which is natural occurring, genuine occurring situations, so it can be only placed in the normal condition. So field experiment is also one of the method through which we do, though it is not a laboratory setup, but it could be in the field. So there are good way through which we conduct experimental method as well.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. You rightly said, you talk about randomization, manipulation and control. You clarify in which condition we use this experimental research design. Now let us talk about the steps involved in experimental research. Steps play an important roles. Like suppose we are going to set a research problem. The first step will be the selection of the research problem. Second will be the review literature. So what are the steps involved in this experimental research?
Yeah, definitely. So there are certain steps. These steps are common for the others, but let me give you a briefly introduction. What are the steps we follow? So very first step is to find out the problem that the researcher has already gone through. Then we go with the research findings with the formulation of hypothesis, and these hypothesis formulation is based on the previous literature. In the hypothesis, they form that how the cause and effect relationship would be making significant in order to see this impact of IB on DB or not. Similarly, we go for the data collection. We test the hypothesis by using different statistical method. Then we interpret the result. Then after interpretation, we test the hypothesis whether hypothesis is accepted or rejected. If the data is sufficient in order to accept the hypothesis, we formulate the we make the interpretation accordingly, and we make a conclusion like whether the causal relationship is been established or not.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. Now, can you give one or two advantage and disadvantage of this experimental research? One point.
What?
Advantage and disadvantage.
Yeah, so definitely it has good advantage. What experimental research design is explanatory research design is talking about. It establishes the cause and effect relationship, which could not be possible for other research design. So whenever we have to answer the question why, it can be possible in explanatory research design, right? It is one of the advantage where we can identify we can answer the question why. We can find out the cause behind any occurrence. These are the definitely advantage, and it happen in the control conditions, so it can be placed very effectively. It can be generalized very effectively as compared to the other research design. It can be generalized at the same time very effectively.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. You clarify all the concept of experimental research design. You talk about the methods, you talk about the significance, you talk about the advantage and disadvantage. Basically, descriptive research is just like a picture. In picture, we see all the thing. And experimental research design is just like a movie with audience. So thank you very much. And hope in next session we are going to discuss about explorative research design. So thank you very much.
Thank you.